Hey everyone, welcome back to the American Justice Podcast Q&A episode for episode 6. Talking to Scott on the other side of Big D. How's it going over there, Scott?
What's episode 6? Return of the Jedi, right? I can't believe you didn't say it.
Hey, it's I'm allergic to Ewoks.
Those are pretty furry little creatures.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I got a kick out of it when they showed up for about 3 seconds in Rise of Skywalker. I'm like, hey, those existed. Thank you for the nostalgia, Lucasfilm. Appreciate it.
I was going to say, it surprised me because, as you know, I haven't seen episode 9 until, what was it, like 2 weeks ago? And
Yeah.
And I remember I was sitting there watching, all of a sudden those little Ewoks showed up, and I was just like, what the heck? Where did they come from?
Yeah, they just kind of threw everything in there. Yes. Nostalgia soup. These things existed.
I don't know what we're going to do when we get to episode 10. You're just going to be SOL.
I'm just going to start making up movie titles for future Star Wars movies.
Or it could be like any movie. It could be like, what was the Raiders of the Lost Ark? Didn't they have like 2 or 3 of them or something? Like the Temple of Doom and...
There was the Raiders of the Lost... Well, actually, they call Raiders of the Lost Ark is now referred to as Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay.
I noticed that on Disney Plus. No, wait, not Disney Plus. Netflix. That's the way it's titled on Netflix.
Okay.
And then there's Temple of Doom, The Last Crusade, and then the abomination known as Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Wow.
And then there's...
hadn't even heard of that one.
Yeah, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out, 10 years ago, maybe a little sooner than that.
Well, I'm going to show my non-knowledge. Did it have Harrison Ford in it?
It did have Harrison Ford,
wow.
And it had Shia LaBeouf as his son.
Okay.
There are bits and pieces of that movie that really aren't that bad, but the movie as a whole, I couldn't stand it. It's difficult for me to watch. And they're making a 5th and final one right now. Harrison Ford has agreed to do a 5th and final one.
Oh, jeez.
But he's only allowed to go into temples that have wheelchair ramps. So.
What about the Bourne Identity? Didn't that one have like 10
I think there was like maybe six or 7 of those. I was never really big into those films.
We got to figure out if there's been a franchise that had 10 films. Fast and the Furious, maybe? How many do they have?
James Bond's had
yes.
20, but I'm not a big Bond fan.
You don't want to do American Justice Podcast episode 10 Goldfinger?
No, I was thinking more along the lines of American Justice Podcast Octopussy.
Well, that's we'll make that your episode.
Yes, the Octopussy episode will be mine. Okay, we only had one question this week, and it was such a long episode. It was just over an hour, and it was so full of information that you must have hit all the points because we only had one question.
Well, I think that one of the things that I would like to point out is that, that we're trying to keep the episodes between like 30 and 45 minutes. I know that everybody is, their time is valuable and it's hard to sit down and listen to an hour at a time or whatever. So we try to keep it as short as possible. The reason that this one went a little bit longer was because I feel like in the previous episode, I promised everybody that we would get to Brandon's interrogation, that we would start talking about Brandon's interrogation.
Right.
And then we started adding more and more and more to Charla's interview that it's like, well, this is important stuff and we have to tell everybody what we're talking about, but we still promised them we'd get to Brandon's interrogation. So that's the reason that it went longer. Now, when we in episode 7, that's coming out on Sunday, when we're going to have to break that into several parts as well, because, that's starting to get into Brandon's interrogation, starting to get into his timeline, starting to get into a bunch of stuff that it's going to take a lot of time to explain. So We have a few kind of multi-part episodes coming up, but I would just tell everybody, bear with us. Once we get through the interviews, Brandon's, Charla's 2 interviews, Mike's interview, etc. Once we get through all of that, it'll go a lot faster. We'll start getting into the investigation and how they found the knife and the constitutional violation. It'll start going a lot faster. So just bear with us while we get through all of this stuff that's important for everybody to know about as we move forward. It's like the foundation of the house, right? You can't build the house unless you have the foundation. So
True. Too true. Well, let's go ahead and knock out this one question. Now, this question comes from the YouTube feed for the episode. Now, I don't know if everybody is aware of this or not, but in this past episode, the YouTube feed of the podcast episode itself, it actually has video to what you're hearing in the interviews. So all the more reason to seek us out on YouTube and watch the episode from there as well. Our YouTube feed is www.youtube.com/channel and then a whole big long line of crap because Netflix won't let you name your channel until you have like 100 subs or something like that.
Yeah, you have to have 100 subscribers before you can get a custom URL. But if you just go into YouTube and search for American Justice Podcast, we're the first one that comes up. So
I'm sure, and there should be a link on the website too. Is there that takes you to that channel?
There's a link on the website. There's a link on the descriptions for the Stitcher and the Apple Podcasts and all of that. And it's kind of funny because at first I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to put it on YouTube for people to listen to, and because some people, they don't really have Stitcher or whatever, but they can pull up a YouTube video. So I just put the audio up there, and then I don't know what happened, but last week I was just sitting there thinking, I was like, wait a second, I can actually put the video on the YouTube if somebody's watching this on YouTube. So it's like my mind was blown and I had an epiphany. And so now going forward, the episode, even just the actual recorded episodes, will have the actual interviews or the actual video that goes along with any of the sound clips that we're showing from videos.
All the more reason for people to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. So
plus we need to get to 100 so we can make the youtube.com/American Justice podcast.
That would be awesome. I know it's the same thing with the podcast I do. My YouTube channel doesn't have a name. I think I have like 15 subscribers. Most of the people who listen to me on Spotify. So
yeah.
All right. So here we are.
How should we do? We need to have like a subscriber blog, or not a blog, but a subscriber contest. And once we get to 100 subscribers, we'll put everybody's name in a box and pull out one for a grand prize. We'll have to think about that. I don't know what the prize would be at this point.
Not a bad idea. Although I've gotten to the point to where I really hate watching videos on YouTube because you are bombarded with ads now, no matter what.
Yep.
You used to get them, every 3 or 4 videos they would play one. Now they play them before a video starts, and a lot of the times you can't even skip through them because the ad is only as long as the timer that allows you to skip it.
Right.
So
plus, a lot of times they'll actually interrupt the video to play an ad.
Yes. Sometimes if it's a long video, there'll be an ad in the middle of it, kind of like the free version, or not the free, but the cheaper version of Hulu.
Yeah.
Or Crackle or something like that. Okay, our only question this week comes from Debbie in Plano, who submitted a question last week as well.
Thank you, Debbie.
Debbie is following us. Debbie's she's trolling us. She's stalking us.
I feel like she's stalking me. She may actually be outside the window right now.
Well, she would have to be really damn tall to be looking in mine right now, but okay, the question goes, and like I said, this comes from the YouTube feed. Mm-hmm. What's with Ranger Colin's hand gestures? Like, I haven't seen the YouTube video, Yet, the first thing that comes to mind is some stuff I'm not going to do on the camera. But what's with Ranger Colin's hand gestures? I thought he was just mirroring Charla's random movements, but he did it during Aunt Kathy's interview too.
Yeah.
It was very odd to watch.
Yeah. It's funny because I've watched all of the interviews that Ranger Collins did with all of the different people that he did interviews with, and I never really noticed it. And then when Debbie pointed that out, I went back and watched a couple, and it is kind of weird. Like there's a lot of people, like I try to kind of not be demonstrative and stuff when I'm talking on this, just because it's kind of distracting, I think. But in real life, I do tend to talk with my hands, and I tend to give those hand gestures that kind of like if you don't know what you're talking about, you're kind of doing this, or if you do, then you're really like I think it's just one of those nonverbal communication things that that helps you get your point across. But Debbie's absolutely right. I went back and watched Ranger Collins, and he does seem to have some weird, like he'll do a lot of this, like like, okay, like did you do this, or did you go over there, like he does seem to use his hands a lot. So I'm not 100% sure if that's maybe just kind of like a nervous tick, like if he's trying to kind of think about what he's doing next, and he's kind of using his hand gestures to distract, or if that's just the way that he normally talks in life. Like, I don't know. It is kind of weird, but I actually didn't even notice it in all the hours and hours and hours that I've watched it. But of course, I wasn't really watching it for Ranger Collins. I was more watching it for the person that he was interviewing. But yeah, when she said that, I went back and watched it. It is kind of strange how he has some, a lot of hand gestures that are kind of normal, but then he has a few that are just kind of like, I don't know. He'll just sit there and like I said, he'll kind of do this, like he's trying to almost like stop you, or like he's non-verbally trying to get you to say something, or trying to get you to not say something, or it is kind of weird, and that's interesting that Debbie picked up on that.
Well, okay, here we go on the theory train. This is just a theory of mine, because she says that he does this with Charla, he does this with Kathy. I don't recall in watching any of the video from the documentary of him being really demonstrative with Mike Etherington or Brandon. Mm-hmm. So it appears to me that he is only being this way with women. So I notice that I do this more when I'm talking to children. So perhaps he only acts this way when he's dealing with someone he considers to be inferior.
Well, I don't know. I would have to. I don't know. I'd have to go back and kind of look at all the different ones and see if that's the case or not. Like I said in the beginning of the answer, I didn't even notice it to begin with. So I didn't really notice if it was with the women or the men or whatever. So, but yeah, we can go back and take a look at that, and maybe next week we'll have an answer for Debbie.
Yeah, we just got deep, baby. We just got deep because, I noticed that a lot working in law enforcement. I noticed that a lot when officers would talk to people that they've arrested or incarcerated inmates or whatever.
Yeah.
I just, they're like that. So,
well, it's, I think it also has to do with certain, just, the way that people talk. I've noticed sometimes that, like I said, in real life, I do use my hands a lot because I do try to kind of convey thoughts and images and, stuff like that with the kind of nonverbal communication. And I've actually noticed sometimes that, I'll be making these hand gestures, and the person I'm talking to will actually look down at my hands, like, kind of like, what are you doing, dude? Like, why are you have so many hand gestures? And, I don't know. It's, maybe that's just the way that he is. Maybe you're right. It's a subconscious thing that he's trying to exert, like, dominance or,
Right.
that type of thing. So I'm not 100% sure. We'll have to go back and psychoanalyze Ranger Collins.
Yeah, I just remember seeing that. I remember seeing that a lot working for the sheriff's department. That when officers would speak to inmates or people that are beneath them,
right?
They would be very instructional. They would use their hands a lot when they talked. Yeah. People also do this to children. They do it to dogs. And it's I think it's kind of a psychological, maybe subliminal show of a superiority complex, maybe.
So wait a second, you're saying they do it to dogs and children, and then he was doing it to Charla?
Yeah.
Sorry. I'll digress.
Let's say he'd throw her a bone, but we discussed that last week.
Oh, my Lanta.
My wife is the one with the psychology degree. I could always call her up here and ask her opinion.
Have her, we'll send her all the videos and see if she can
right?
See if she can give us an answer on that.
Yeah. Might have to do that. Might have to ask her opinion on men who use their hands when they speak as a way to feel inferior. Or superior. I'm sorry.
Watch it turn out that Ranger Collins is just as crazy as Charla.
Or maybe he was having a seizure.
He was having a psychosomatic pseudo seizure.
He was kind of he was. I think I saw the guy eat a couple of times, man. There's a possibility he had a large gravy. For lunch that day.
It's funny that we bring that up because one of the things that I noticed, and like I said, I've gone back and watched this video with Charla dozens of times, and I just caught something the other day that when I was watching for doing the editing that I didn't catch before. And she said, one of the things she says is, I faint a lot. And it's like, okay, well, that's one thing. But then like 2 seconds later, she says, so I do that. And, it's like, this is not, it's almost like she's admitting that, she's like, hey, this is something I do. It's not, this is something that happens to me, or this is not a condition that I have, or this is not, you know what I mean? It's like, I think subliminally, she actually came out and kind of admitted like, hey, I do that. Like, that's something I do.
Oh, man.
We'll have to get Susan Constantine on that.
She's a special kind of someone. She truly is. And we're waiting anxiously for the email or phone call for her to, did I just say whore? That was an accident. For her to that was Freudian slip.
You're gonna get me in trouble, C. Derick Miller.
Hey, I'm the one that said it. Put the blame on me. But it was a total accident.
Freudian slip.
Yeah, Freudian slip. We're still waiting on her to call and leave a message or write an email or make a comment.
Or
to
call me and say, hey, I'd love to come on your show.
Yeah, to either say, hey, I'd love to come on your show and, state my piece, or I think you guys are pieces of crap for what you're doing, and it's making PTA meetings very difficult, and, something along those lines.
C. Derick Miller is an author, producer, and gonzo journalist from the conservative community of Greenville, Texas. Sam Cloud Miller is a graphic artist and a liberal civil rights activist from Austin, Texas. Combine those two and what do you have? Magic. Recorded in the Bishop Arts District of Dallas, it's a podcast that is sure to never disappoint. They talk about books, film, music, today's topics, and life in general. Even though they may disagree on the topics from time to time, they'll always kiss and make up. It's a practice that America needs to relearn, don't you think? No filters, no scripts, and no schedule. Catch the Butterflies Make Me Angry podcast on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Peace to the peaceful, truth to the masses, hell to the tyrants. Get all the details at cderickmiller.com.
So next week's episode is episode 7, The Force Awakens. There you go. Are you happy now? I did it.
Yes, I'm very happy now. Much better.
No, but episode 7, we're gonna get deeper into Brandon. Can you tell us a little bit more about that episode?
I just hope that Disney doesn't try to like copyright frame us because we keep talking about the name of Star Wars episodes.
Let them. I could use the publicity, man.
Right. They're trying to crush the little man.
Now then we just have to prepare for the next thing, which right now is the takeover of the squirrels, because they are everywhere with less cars on the road. I swear, every morning I walk through the park every morning, and there are just hundreds of squirrels.
Not enough
Like,
cars to
just-
run over the squirrels.
No, not enough cars to run over the squirrels. They're moving in armies now, and it's a little disturbing because they don't run away from you anymore. They stop and they stare you down like they're pissed off at you. So
They're like, hey, man, I've been trying to get Oscar to get run over for 2 weeks now, and you guys just not doing it.
I don't know how we got off on this tangent. I'm sure it was something I said, but we were talking about episode 7 for next week. Give us more of a rundown on episode 7.
Yes, episode 7. So episode 7 is going to be quite arguably one of the most important episodes of the whole season. And the reason for that is because we're going to get into the timeline that Brandon gives Ranger Collins for the night that he was, or the night that Dennis and Norma were murdered. So he talks a lot about where he went, what he did, who he was with, that type of thing. And we're really going to break down the timeline, and we'll actually start bringing out the forensics. We'll start bringing out the phone records and the toll tag records, and we'll kind of compare where Brandon said he was and where the forensics proved that he was. So without giving anybody a big spoiler alert, it's not the same place. So he definitely has some explaining to do for Ranger Collins, and we'll see whether or not he explains it away.
All right, really looking forward to Sunday's episode. It's like a big deal to me now to wake up on Sunday mornings and immediately jump over onto my laptop to bring up that episode. And even though I helped write it, I'm still like, well, I wonder what happens this week. So
I think that's I actually would like to answer that question, because a lot of people have been asking me kind of what our process is like. And this is one of the reasons that that we got into trouble last week, is because, so Derick and I both, like, we kind of collaborate on the beginning of the core, we'll call it the core of the episode, because basically we just go in and kind of write down everything that happened. And then I turn it over to Derick, and I let him, what I call chatify it, which is basically he goes in and makes it more colorful. And all of the, most of the little colorful tidbits that you hear in the episode is a result of his writing. And that's what makes it, to me, so colorful. Like, nobody's going to listen if I'm just sitting there rambling off statistics or rambling off things that happened. So he goes in and makes it more colorful, and then hands it back over to me, and then I go back in and do the final edit. I go back in and add some stuff that we forgot. That's when I really start going, for like in Charla's interview, for example, I really went back over like minute by minute and kind of analyzed what she said and realized there was a lot of stuff that we missed and I needed to add back in there. So it's a very collaborative effort that goes into it, but sometimes we do run into trouble like that when we're promising, next week we're going to talk about Brandon's interrogation, and then all of a sudden I just added 25 minutes of of Charla's interview into there. So
Right.
but anyway, so a lot of people have been asking what our process is like, and that's what we go through every week. So right now I think I'm doing the final edits on episode 7. I think we have the core episode through episode 9 or 10 at this point. So so that's kind of how it goes down, and that's seems to be working well. I hope if everybody can make some YouTube comments or some reviews on Apple Podcasts, that would really help us. And and it would be nice also to get some more kind of feedback from the general public. And it's kind of like what you were saying about people reading your book and then not putting a review on there. Like, that feedback and the comments and stuff on YouTube or on the website, on the blog or whatever, that really helps us kind of figure out things that you would like or would not like. For example, someone told me this week actually that we needed to kind of cut back on the Q&A episodes, and I was like, well, guess what? That's not going to happen because you're 1 out of 100. It seems like everybody else is enjoying them. So, but it's good to have that feedback to know that there's actually somebody that may not enjoy it as much, or maybe there's something that we could do to make it more enjoyable for everybody, or that type of thing. So, and I think as far as the reason we only had one, we only have one question this week, but that's also because, could have been a couple things. Could have been it was a long episode. Maybe we actually covered everything. But I think the bigger issue is I think people are kind of assuming that other people are going to write in and ask questions, or they just kind of think to themselves, like, I wonder this or that, and they don't really put it to paper or put it on the YouTube channel. So, or the Facebook or whatever. So if you do have a question, if there's something in the episode that you don't understand, please ask a question and we will answer it for you.
Yeah, I think another reason is that most people that I know listen to podcasts while they're commuting, and no one's commuting right now.
Well, yeah.
So
that's true.
That I know. I'm only listening to a couple that I normally listen to. So, okay, well, I guess that's going to be it for this week. And our one question from Debbie in Plano. Debbie, thank you again for listening.
Thank you, Debbie.
For interacting.
Absolutely, thank you very much.
2 weeks in a row.
Let's see what question she comes up with next week.
Yeah, right. You're a trooper, Debbie. That's it, Scott. Man, another great week. I'm looking forward to Sunday.
I'm looking forward to delivering it because we're getting some really good feedback, and a lot of people are really enjoying the story and enjoying getting to know the details of the case. Finally, there's a lot of stuff about this case that the general public just didn't know, and I'm glad that everybody's on board with learning those.
All right. Well, I am your co-host, C. Derick Miller. You can find out more about me at cderickmiller.com. Also on the podcast titled Butterflies Make Me Angry, where right now we're selecting an indie author, reading the first chapter of their book, and letting you, the listener, decide if you'd like to continue. I'm reading a really disturbing one right now. It may be the most disturbing book I've ever read in my life.
Oh my!
It really is. It caused a lot of hell at a horror convention not too long ago, and for people to get pissed off at a horror convention says a lot about the book. The book is called Dead Inside by Chandler Morrison, and I don't want to say anything about it because I don't want to ruin the surprise if anyone decides to read it, but it is quite possibly the most disturbing thing I've ever read before.
Well,
it actually turned my stomach a couple times.
They'll have to check it out on the Butterflies Make Me Angry podcast.
Yeah, that's from last week's episode. So,
and you read the full first chapter, right?
Yeah, we read the first full first chapter, and then leave it up to everyone else to decide whether or not they want to finish the book. So Yeah, that's available right now. Butterflies Make Me Angry podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, all that good stuff. But you can find all that at cderickmiller.com as well.
Perfect.
So that's going to wrap it up for this week. Let's see. How are we going to do the tagline this week? On 3?
Sure.
Okay, on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Stay aware,
stay strong, and get involved.
Bye.
You guys have a great week.
The American Justice Podcast is owned and copyrighted by Atua Productions, LLC. Your host is Scott Pogensee, and your writer is C. Derick Miller. The theme music for the American Justice Podcast has been created and composed by Josh DeRosa. Scripted and recorded episodes are published every Sunday morning, with follow-up Q&A episodes released on Fridays. You can find the Q&A episodes on YouTube by searching for American Justice Podcast. Atua Productions aims for this to be an interactive podcast where you, the audience, has a great amount of influence on the content of our shows. You can interact with us in several ways. First, and most preferred, is you can leave us a voicemail. Our phone number is 972-942-0444. Be sure to leave your name and the city you're calling from, along with whether or not we can use your voice on the air. If Facebook is more your style, you can log on to our Facebook page at facebook.com/American Justice Podcast. Feel free to leave a comment, or you can message us on Messenger if you have a more pressing question or issue. If you would like to blog about the show, then you can log on to AmericanJusticePodcast.com and tell us what you think there. You can find many of the documents discussed in this episode there as well. If you are a tweeter, you can also voice your opinion on Twitter at @AJusticePodcast. If you would like to support the show, you can do so in a couple different ways. First, consider visiting our Patreon page at patreon.com/AJPodcast. We have different levels of support that include t-shirts, guest call-in spots, and early access to our podcast and YouTube shows. Next, you can like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get notifications of when we publish episodes. We would also very much appreciate it if you could give us a 5-star review. If you have any comments about the show, or more importantly, any tips on the case we're discussing, please call 972-942-0444 and leave us a message. After all, if the subject of our podcast is innocent, that means someone out there is guilty. American Justice Army? Let's find them.